this hour about how many people are injured, but hearing from our affiliate station, WCTV, they are reporting 4 people were injured. Unclear, though, whether the shooter has been apprehended or whether the shooter is part of that number of people who've been injured. Again, Mugo, this is all unfolding in just the last hour or so. And so we will continue to follow this story. What you're looking at right now is video that was posted on X, formerly Twitter, by, I believe, a student who was on campus and took this video from her window. Again, unclear exactly how many people were injured and whether or not the shooter at this point has been apprehended by police. But FSU is still urging people to shelter in place. The very last message that they sent out moments ago says law enforcement is actively clearing rooms on the main campus. Law enforcement officers will use a safe code Seminole to confirm it is safe to open the door. Continue to shelter in place until law enforcement contacts you. Again, we saw these alerts coming in from Florida State University at around noon Eastern time. So an hour and 17 minutes later, we are still waiting for some more details from the university campus. In terms of guidance, again, Mugo, they're saying that people on campus this hour should just shelter in place until the situation is under control. You can see through our live images here again, just the incredible police and emergency response to the scene this hour. Again, we've got state police, campus police, FBI, and hearing ATF will be responding to the scene as well.
Okay, CBS News correspondent Chanel Call, thank you for that update. Again, if you are just joining us, a very active situation right now over at Florida State University, the Tallahassee campus. An active shooter situation, students being told to shelter in place. We know several people have been hospitalized right now. The extent of their injury still not clear. But I want to send things over to our partners at WFOR in Miami so we can see their coverage from the ground.
And you ran to your car, or where were you running to?
I was just running in the direction that everybody else was running, trying to get out of there. And then once I felt like I was at a safe enough distance, I went to my car to get off campus because I didn't know, where that shooter was going to be going or anything like that.
Did you physically see a shooter?
I did not. I didn't physically see a shooter or anybody get shot. I just heard the shots pretty close to me and saw people running, so I was trying to get out of there too.
And when you talk about running, about how many students were you running with? And was this sort of a stampede? Was everyone just sprinting, running in all different directions, or everybody running sort of in the same direction? And how many students would you say were running in the same direction as you?
I think it took a minute for everybody to process what was going on. So whenever I heard the shots, it was like a couple people running, maybe like 12 or 20 people running out of the direction. And then I looked back and I saw everybody flooding out of the Union and everything. And that was probably like a couple hundred people trying to get out of there.
And I want to pause just for a second because we were just, we see a shot of at least just 3 students running there. And then moments ago, we saw a blurred shot. It looked like maybe someone was being carried out of the vicinity. Their image was blurred, so we don't know the circumstances surrounding that shot. About what time did you hear those first shots, Blake?
I want to say around like noonish. I'm not entirely sure, but it was around, I think it was, probably around noon exactly.
And when you talk about running away from the scene, did you run to a car? Where was your safe spot?
Initially it was my dorm, but there was more people running towards my dorm area too. So I decided I was just going to go to my car and leave.
Mm-hmm. And where are you now?
I'm off campus. I'm completely off campus. I'm probably like 7 miles off campus.
Yeah. What are you hearing from other students, maybe through through X or through text or WhatsApp? What are other students saying?
I don't know anybody personally that was over there. I just hear a lot of like in the group chats making sure everybody was safe and everything. And just like rumors, but nothing that like I can confirm or deny. So.
Sure, nothing that can be substantiated at this point. We hear of active shooter situations happening all over the United States, but it must just take a toll different when it happens on your own campus.
Yeah, definitely. It's really surreal. Like, it's still registering to me. Just to think that, like, I'm usually at the union at that exact time too. So it's just like surreal to me to think that like I could have woke up and gone to class today or anything like that, and my friends could have been going to class and their life be taken or just injured or anything like that. It's very surreal to think about.
Wow. Shirley, you've been in touch with your family right now. What was the first conversation you had when you talked to your loved ones?
I called my grandma as I was like running from the area, and I was like, "Hey, it's a shooting! There's a shooting." And she was just making sure I was okay, trying to just get as much information as possible, make sure I was safe.
And we're just receiving notification, Attorney General Pam Bondi on X writing, the FBI is on the scene at Florida State and we are in communication with agents on the ground. Our priority is the safety of everyone involved. We will keep updating as we learn more, praying for all. And that information just came to us from Attorney General Pam Bondi on X. Let's go to another live interview right now.
Just we got outside and just here we are. We ended up in a church across the street here.
What was that moment like when the four of you were here and you knew you were safe?
Just like
really
nothing you've ever felt before, or you could even explain. It's hard to explain. I mean, just we're just blessed. I mean, how we got out of there, I can't. It's kind of surreal being at the church because God was watching over us. I mean, definitely we could have went really bad. I hope all the people pray for their families and that they're okay. We don't know much right now, but
anything else covers it. Thank you so much. I know that's not easy. We don't know what
Jacob Murphy there talking to.
All right, we are continuing to monitor the situation. You just heard a live interview from someone at the scene. You're taking a look at a reporter who's on the scene as well, who's been updating us as he learns new information. I want to go back now to Blake. He's a FSU student who evacuated campus when he heard the gunshots. And Blake, you're the first person who actually is reporting physically hearing those shots. Walk us through, for people just joining us, you said you heard 12 shots and then a pause and then about another 15 shots. Walk us through that moment.
Yeah, I was leaving the student union area and I heard about 12 shots go off. I initially thought it was like construction or something, but in the back of my head I was like, those are gunshots, because you could hear the shot and then hear the impact of the bullets. So after those 12 shots, I saw people starting to leave the union, and so I ran as well away from the union. And as I was running, I heard about another 15 shots, 12 or 15 shots.
And as you're running, what goes through your mind?
Just to get away, and anybody who's going in that direction, telling them to go the other way. There's a shooting going on.
And describe the moment when you finally got to the scene, and then you said you went to your apartment and were just able to sort of decompress and process what just happened. I imagine it still feels surreal.
Yeah, I initially went to my dorm, and I realized that people were still running that direction too, so I didn't know where the shooter was going or anything, so I figured I'd just get off campus. So I went to my car and left campus.
And I want to update you right now that sources are telling CBS News Miami that the shooter is in custody and was also shot by police and taken to the hospital. According to reports, we know that a total of right now 4 people are in the hospital being treated, but sources telling CBS News Miami the shooter is in custody. The shooter was also shot by police and taken to the hospital. Blake, you're hearing that news for the first time. The shooter is in custody. What sigh of relief does that bring you right now?
It's relieving to hear, but it's still devastating at the same time that it ever got to this, and that there's people that are hurting right now and families that are in distress.
And describe the moment. You said you got to your apartment and the first thing you did, we had to cut you short because we were going to a live interview. You said you got in contact with your grandma. Tell us about that conversation with your grandmother.
Yeah, I called her as I was like leaving the area, like as I was running away, and I was telling her like, "Hey, it's a shooting," and she was just trying to make sure that I was safe and okay, and trying to get as much information as possible just to make sure I was good.
I can only imagine how relieved she was to hear your voice. And the latest information, we have been able to confirm right now that a student is in custody, or someone is in custody. That person was allegedly, we're hearing reports, shot by police as well. A total of 4 people in the hospital being treated right now. Thank you so much, Blake, for being with us and sharing your experience. You are the first person that we've spoken with today that is actually near the student union where this happened, and hearing a total of about, you said 30 shots, running from the scene, running to safety, getting to your apartment, and then calling your grandmother and just relaying that news that you were safe. And so we are glad that you're safe, and thank you in the midst of all of this for speaking with us. I want to go back now to our CBS News Miami colleague who's sitting right next to me, who graduated from FSU just 2 years ago. Hearing all of this, shooter is in custody.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, for real.
But your heart must hurt for all your former students right now.
It's hard to process, you know, just after being there for so long, and, you know, being in that exact spot where everything's alleged right now. It's really hard to process. If I had been there, you know, if I was still going to school at that time, you never know. It's just insane to see this happening right now.
And we've reached out to Governor DeSantis, and we'll have his response for you very shortly. We also know that Attorney General Pam Bondi put out a statement on X saying that the FBI is on the scene at Florida State, and we are in communication with agents on the ground. Our priority is the safety of everyone involved, and we will continue to update as we learn more, praying for everyone. And I'm going to stay with this shot right now while I pull up Governor Ron DeSantis' Twitter account, because I'm receiving word that he has also just put out a tweet moments ago. He says, this was released on X just 16 minutes ago. He says, our prayers are with our FSU family, and state law enforcement is actively responding. And that is in response to a statement that they put out, FDLE put out, saying that FDLE is actively engaged in the incident on FSU's campus, and we will update the public with more information as soon as possible. But we know the very latest information is that officials saying that they do have the alleged shooter in custody, and that there was some sort of gunfire exchange, and that suspect was shot. But DeSantis now just putting out a statement 16 minutes ago saying our prayers are with our FSU family, and state law enforcement is actively responding to the scene. What are you hearing from your friends?
I haven't heard much yet, to be totally honest. I'm still waiting to hear back. I mean, I am imagining things are okay, but I haven't heard official responses back at the moment.
Sure, yes. Everyone's probably just sort of decompressing now from the incident. We heard a lot of students describe it as just surreal, saying that you hear about these types of things happening on the news, as you do, working in a newsroom or all over the United States, but you never really think that something like this is going to happen in your own backyard.
Exactly, yeah.
And right now, this is a live shot that we've just been staying on for over an hour now. It looks like they're continuing to barricade the scene. We know that they're actively investigating the circumstances, but we heard from a student, Blake Leonard, who literally was near the student union when those gunshots rang out. He reported hearing 12 shots and then a pause. And then he said he heard 15 more shots, possibly a total of 30. And then he said students just started running from the union, and he just followed the students. We heard from another student who was actually in a classroom. Her name was Ava, and she shared with us how her teacher got the alert and told the students in the classroom that there was an active shooter situation and began barricading the door. But still certain students, because they felt like they were in a safe enough distance away from where the active shooter was potentially, that they could make it to their cars, so they still decided to leave the scene and get to their cars and then make it to safety. But families right now, just knowing that 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 person, the alleged suspect, has been apprehended. Police say that a total of 4 people were potentially hurt and receiving treatment in the hospital, but that the alleged active shooter suspect exchanged in some sort of gunfire with police and was shot and apprehended. We just saw a reporter who's been updating us from the scene, kind of giving us a thumbs up. So we expect he'll have.
And you were just watching our partners at CBS News Miami. They are following breaking news out of Tallahassee, Florida. Multiple people have been hospitalized following a shooting at Florida State University. This is still a very, very fluid situation here. Information coming in minute by minute, but right now I want to bring in CBS News senior coordinating producer Anna Schechter for much more on this. Anna, I guess the big thing to come out of all this right now is that we've just learned that someone is in custody. A suspect has been arrested in all of this, but what else have you learned so far?
Well, that a suspect is in custody and multiple people are being treated at local hospitals. So that's all we know at this time. We also learned that police were having to go and clear rooms one by one, which was a sign that they had likely apprehended someone, but you never know if there is a second person, or law enforcement is always going to be wary of some other incident. So this is still a fluid situation, not resolved by any measure at this point. There are still students in their rooms. The school has not been cleared. The law enforcement alert that went out telling everyone to shelter in place, barricade doors, that has not changed. You see there on your screen the emergency message from Florida State University Tallahassee campus telling everyone to continue to shelter in place. And so far as we know, there has been no further guidance for people who are sheltering in place, who are there. You can imagine what it's like for the many people who are students and faculty and staff there on campus. But the FBI is there on scene assisting multiple agencies. In some of the footage you saw multiple ambulances lined up. So continuing to be a very fluid situation. We're only just now an hour and a half or so away from the beginning of this incident. So it's very early days. And of course, police are remaining vigilant and concerned for the safety of the people who remain on campus. So at this point, that's what we know. And hoping to get in more. All we're getting from the FBI right now is that they are on scene. That's from the local field office there in Tallahassee. A couple of different offices from the FBI have responded and are there assisting. And that just tells you just how large and what a major event that this was. We just heard our partners down there in Florida reporting they spoke to a student who heard about 12 gunshots, then a pause, and then about 15 more was his estimation. So that's a lot of rounds. So we will try to, of course, follow as law enforcement obtains surveillance footage. They can then do an audio analysis. They can do a video analysis to try to determine how many rounds were shot. The investigation begins now, and they're going to try to create a timeline going back from right this moment, right now, going back to the minutes, hours, days, and weeks leading up to the shooting. Motive is important, and all of this is important for prosecutors who will be building a case against the suspect. So it's very important for police to maintain the integrity of the investigation at these early hours. That's hard in a fluid situation, but they're trained to do just that. It's essentially secured like a crime scene. We saw footage of the entire university being barricaded, and so that's a big area to check. All of that entire surface area, so to speak, will be an integral part of the investigation. So that's a large area and challenging. So that speaks to why you'd have so much support there with local, state, and federal law enforcement assisting in this issue. You see there on your screen, you see students walking away, a lot of chaos. So here we see students with their hands up, exiting buildings. This was all part of the clearing operation that law enforcement was carrying out over the last hour or so. But you can imagine chaos, and there those students are doing a good job of going slowly. Now we see law enforcement vehicles outside. You see agents in tactical gear, multiple agents in tactical gear there. Some of them speaking on the phone. So they're still monitoring, they're still watching. They are vigilant even now that we're about an hour and a half after the event. You see there, look at all those dozens of law enforcement vehicles. That is a huge response. And a warranted response if the shooter wasn't apprehended immediately. That's a lot of territory that the individual could flee to and seek cover. So once that call came in, probably immediately there was that sort of triggered an effect to call in multiple agencies, given how much area there was to search and clear. That's a major operation. You know, even when the suspect has been apprehended, one, they're worried about somebody else, they're worried about a copycat. But if the suspect wasn't apprehended immediately, very, very challenging situation for investigators.
Okay,
there you see his video from a student. Go ahead.
Anna Schechter, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And you know, as you were mentioning, the law enforcement out there, we know the FBI is there, state police is there as well, and also university police. So this is a wide range of law enforcement officers on the scene there investigating. So much more to come out of this, even as we know that a suspect has been arrested. Right now, I want to bring in Felipe Rodriguez for much more on this. He's a former NYPD detective sergeant and an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Felipe, thank you so much for being with us today. Again, as we said earlier, we know a lot of law enforcement. They're at the scene right now. We saw video of lines and lines of cars. How do you think police are responding to this? What are they doing right now?
Well, when we look at it, right, it's going to be a huge multi-agency response. Florida, unlike New York, is a little bit different, right? We're going to have the Florida Department of Law Enforcement responding. But the initial agency is going to be the campus police, right? And they're going to be guiding the officers in their response and giving out additional information. You know, everyone talks about the FBI. The FBI will get there and respond, but they're more an investigative type situation where they're going to, you know, once things are secure, help out. And at this time, you know, everybody says, you know, the students haven't been released. Everyone's still sheltering in place. You got to remember, the campus here is 42,000 students, right? And it's intermixed between residential areas and, you know, the campus itself. So they do have a very arduous task of going through these, you know, rooms one by one. And at the same time, you're trying to conduct what we call a digital forensic investigation, right? We have to find out, was this lone wolf gunman, or was he being aided by anybody? And also, do we have any sort of improvised explosive devices? So there's a myriad of things that are going on back and forth that investigators have to do. So here we are responding to the scene, trying to immediately, knock down that immediate threat concept, right? Get to that active shooter, take him out, and at the same time being mindful of any other or secondary devices that might have been planted. And then the situations where we begin to actually care for anyone that may be wounded. If the scene is not secure, we cannot provide aid. And a lot, you know, these are hard decisions that cops have to make as they're going into that campus.
And Felipe, I think most will agree with this. The big information to come out of all of this is that that shooter has been arrested. But the question then is, what comes next after all of this? What are police officers, law enforcement, what are they going to be looking for next? Now that at least the big part, the suspect's out of the way, but what comes after this?
Like always, we're big about motive. You know, we want to know why they did this. Was it a mental health issue? Was it the individual just going after one or two students that maybe he was disgruntled about? Motive is big, and it would help lead the investigation. But at this time, it's all digital forensics. You know, we need to get into our incident command or the operational sector of the campus police and go over the CCTV to make sure, you know, any evidence that we might have missed, make sure that we do have the correct shooter, that he's not being aided by anybody. We're going to look into phone records. And the investigative process is still, you know, constantly moving and fluid. We have to jump out there and make sure that we get search warrants for his residence or anywhere else he could be, because we really need to know what was behind his actions and what took place.
Yeah, and we also heard that 4 people, and this is from our partners at CBS Miami, they reported 4 people have been hospitalized, and that was before police officially said that a suspect was in custody. What we learned from that is that suspect apparently was also shot during all of this. From your experience, when police say, hey, 4 people are hospitalized, would that include the suspect in this?
We never usually try to include the suspect because, you know what, the suspect is the suspect. But it goes to show you how, you know, the training has come into place, and also, you know, who helped remove these injured students. It goes to show you that a lot of the training that's taking place is becoming helpful to, at this point, to only have 4 people injured, and I hope that's all it is. We never want anyone injured, but 4 in that aggressive manner that they were able to get, you know, first aid and get to a hospital. It's really showing that, you know, a lot of the programs that we're putting in place, they are working.
And I want to go back to what you said earlier, Felipe, just the importance of police having those students continue the shelter in place. Right now, we don't know exactly when the suspect was apprehended, arrested. We don't know the time frame of that. But in the meantime, for the longest time when all of this started, we were hearing students were still being told to shelter in place. I think you kind of mentioned this earlier, but what is the reasoning for that? Having those students still shelter in place, and maybe at this point that suspect may have been arrested, but what's the point of having those students stay in the buildings wherever they are at that point?
That's a great question. You know, it's always out of abundance of caution. We still haven't really secured everything. This is a massive campus. This is just not a 1 or 2 building shooting, a small campus. Also, we still have an active crime scene at this time. You know, we might be still rendering first aid to someone, and we really don't want the crime scene being trampled on. You know, it makes it harder for the investigation. It makes it harder for the prosecution. And you know, once we have to make sure that everything is 100% safe, then law enforcement will release that. But there should be no rush at this time, so please be patient. Anyone that wants to respond to the location in care of a loved one, let the officers do their job. It's a very complex and difficult job, and you know, you need to give them some time.
Yeah, and I just can't imagine what those students were going through, waiting to figure out when they could actually walk out of campus. Felipe Rodriguez, thank you so much for joining us today and for your expertise on all of this. I want to bring back CBS News correspondent Chanel Call, who's still following this breaking news for us. Chanel, what is the latest?
Well, the latest this hour is sources are telling our partner station at CBS News Miami that the alleged shooter in this case is now in custody. We're also being told that that shooter was shot by police and then was taken to a local hospital. Now, this all Mugo started at around noon Eastern time. That's when FSU, Florida State University, had issued a campus-wide alert about an active shooter, telling people who were on campus to shelter in place. FSU had the busy part of campus, especially during the lunch hour. These are some of the messages you'll see on your screen that were sent out on X by FSU, alerting people on campus to the situation. I want to show you a live shot from the scene if we can, because there are multiple first responders still on scene. That includes campus police, state police, FBI, and also hearing ATF is going to be going to the scene as well. And earlier this hour, we saw officers, agents who were there in tactical gear. So certainly a really massive response to the scene right now. Mugo, we've also learned that multiple people have been injured. Our affiliate CBS News Miami is reporting that 4 people have been sent to a hospital. The images that you're seeing right now, this video was taken by someone who was inside one of the buildings on campus. And you can see the large contingents of police that were on scene this hour. And a Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare representative is confirming to CBS News that people were injured. They say TMH is actively receiving and caring for patients. This is in a statement, Mugo, related to an incident that occurred at Florida State University. At this time, they say details are still unfolding, and we do not yet have specific information to share. However, we want to assure the community that our teams are fully mobilized and prepared to provide the highest level of care and support to all those affected. All right, in terms of guidance to students on campus right now, the latest we have from FSU is this message. It says, continue to shelter in place. Law enforcement is actively clearing rooms on the main campus. Law enforcement officers will use a safe word seminal to confirm it is safe to open the door. Continue to shelter in place until law enforcement contacts you. And while students are sheltering in place, all the activities and classes that would have taken place today are now canceled. I mean, take a look at this video. It is so stunning to see these students sort of rushing out in, the haze of a very fluid situation like this. We're also this hour, Mugo, hearing from state and federal officials. They're responding to this very active, intense situation. Governor Ron DeSantis tweeting this moments ago saying, our prayers are with our FSU family and state law enforcement is actively responding. Attorney General Pam Bondi also releasing a statement saying, our priority is the safety of everyone involved. We will keep updating as we learn more. Praying for all. And Mugo, we're also told FBI Director Kash Patel and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem have been briefed on this shooting. And then just moments ago, just saw this email here. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has saying the president has been briefed on the shooting at Florida State University, and the White House is actively monitoring the situation. So, Mugo, again, 4 people we know have been injured. The alleged shooter, sources telling CBS News Miami, they are in police custody right now, and that shooter apparently was also injured during the incident and is now in a hospital.
Okay, Chanel Call, thank you so much for that information. As you just heard from Chanel, the president has been briefed on the shooting at FSU, and here's what he had to say just moments ago.
Everybody, and I've been briefed on the Florida State University, Tallahassee active shooting. I guess it's an active shooter. Fully briefed as to where we are right now. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing. Horrible that things like this take place. And we'll have more to say about it later. In the meantime, it's an honor to have.
And now let's take you back to our partners at CBS News Miami for their coverage of this on the ground. Listen.
At least 4 people were hurt, but the newest information is now that 6 patients are being treated, 1 in critical condition and the rest in serious condition. We know at least one of those patients potentially is the active shooter who officials tell us was shot. But the newest information coming in. Okay, my producer communicating with me now, saying that we have sound from a student who saw the whole thing unfold.
I was parking my car, walking back, and as I was walking back, I see these group of girls crying, really upset, walking back from the student union, told me they heard gunshots, and they just ran and came back to their apartment where I was walking to. So I'm scared for my friends. I'm making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay and this gets handled soon. I just feel awful for the students on there having to go through these emotions right now, dealing with scared for their lives, honestly.
And just want to confirm this information I'm getting about the latest injuries is actually from Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. Their communications manager, Sarah Cannon, communicating with us right now from Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, saying and confirming that 6 patients are at TMH, 1 in critical condition, the rest in serious condition. And that is up from the 4 that we originally reported. We know that potentially one of those people is the active shooter, him or herself. Officials say that they got into some sort of exchange with that shooter and that active shooter was shot. But the newest information coming to us right now, according to Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, is that they are treating a total of 6 patients, 1 in critical condition and the rest in serious condition. We've heard from a number of students who experienced this themselves today. We heard from Viviana Chavez, a mother of 2 FSU students, who described for us what it was like hearing that there was an active shooter on campus and then confirming that her children were okay. She had 2 children on FSU campus, so she was just terrifying for her to hear this happening in real time and know that her children could potentially be affected, and was just so relieved when she heard they were okay. We've heard from Ava Ariando. She's a FSU student that actually sheltered in place. And we also heard some riveting experience from Blake Leonard. He was the FSU student who evacuated from campus after actually hearing those gunshots. He described hearing 12 shots and then a lull and then 15 shots, and knowing that they were close enough to him because he said he could literally hear them ricocheting off a building, and he was running along with dozens of other students who were just trying to get away from that union gathering area. We also heard from a CBS News Miami colleague who graduated from FSU just 2 years ago, and he described the layout of the campus and basically said that this union area is really a gathering place, that a lot of students congregate there, so a very dangerous situation to have an active shooter with potentially a lot of human targets in that isolated space. We also heard from a former law enforcement official with Miami Gardens, or current law enforcement official, I should say. She was a FSU alum and former Tally police officer, and she spoke to us from an official level about how they respond to situations like this, but also just from an emotional level, you know, covering things like this all too often, and then how close it just hits to home for her. We are taking a live look right now, and I do hear a reporter at the scene. So as soon as we get another reporter up, we'll certainly take that. But the newest information in is that a total of 6 people are hurt. That is up from 4. The Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare Services is confirming that for us. Okay. We have a student.
Okay, we are back now here at CBS News 24/7. You were just listening to our partners from CBS News Miami. The latest to come out of that shooting at Florida State University. We know 6 people injured. We're told 1 person is in critical condition, the others in serious condition. Right now, I want to bring in Ryan Cedergran. He is a student at Florida State University, just to get much more from him about what happened. Ryan, first off, I'm sorry that this happened at your campus. I just kind of want to know what happened in the moments that all of this unfolded. What do you know? What are you hearing from friends?
Yeah, I was in the student union at the time and in the bowling alley. And so our student union, there's the main floor and then there's the lower level. The bowling alley is on the lower level. And the lower level has a bowling alley, and then we have doors, and then next to it is a bar. And the bar is open to the entire union, where there's no doors. It's just kind of an open space. And all of a sudden, everyone in the bar area started running. And that was when we all kind of were like, this isn't normal. This isn't right. We need to go do something.
And so, Ryan, I just want to be clear here. You were in that student union building, because we're hearing that the shooting happened either around there or inside that building. So you were in that building at the time?
I was, yes.
And so did you hear any gunshots, or you just saw students running and decided, okay, there's something going on here?
Yeah, I didn't hear any gunshots. My first instinct was something's not right here, and we need to, go shelter somewhere, because everyone immediately running is not normal.
Yeah. And Ryan, where are you right now? Were you able to get out of that student union building and head back to somewhere else on campus? Where are you?
I'm back in my apartment now, yes.
And have you heard anything from your friends? We know several people, sadly, have been injured in this. One of them is in critical condition. Have you heard anything from your friends? Anyone that you're concerned about right now?
I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know of any friends that were in the building at the time. But I do know that, we just went and protected ourselves, and I've had so many people reaching out to me, because the student union, I worked in the student union. I spent a lot of time there, and I wasn't on shift at the time, but I was, just hanging out there along with a lot of other people at the time. It's the hub of campus. It's a union.
And Ryan, I completely hate to say this because oftentimes we hear about school shootings, whether it's at a university or high school, elementary, and you just imagine, well, that sounds super far away and that will never happen to me. I want to know what's going through your head right now. How are you feeling after all this?
Yeah, it's some of it's a state of shock. There's that going on, and then there's shock. There's gratitude. I could not be more grateful for being here, and then also for the first responders, the Florida State University Police, the Tallahassee Police. I was calm, I think, throughout most of it. There were people around me that were panicking, but I just was like, I trust that Florida State Police is going to be here within a matter of moments, and just do what I can and now to be safe, and then just wait for police to come help us out.
Ryan, can you take me back to that moment? I know you said you saw, it sort of just sounded like commotion. You didn't hear any gunshots, but you saw people running out. What did you guys do? Did you run out of the building, or were you hoping that maybe police officers would show up and tell you guys what to do next?
We immediately hid. We first hid in the billiards room of the bowling alley, which is glass. It's open to the front, but it's kind of around the corner, so we were able to kind of almost put another wall between us and the outside, but it was also glass. So once we saw police get down to the lower level was when we went and hid further behind the bowling machines, which, has doors that we're able to lock. And then it was probably about 10-15 minutes until the police came and escorted us out of the building.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you guys did not run out of the building. You ran somewhere else to shelter in place and waited for police officers to come lead you out of the building.
We did not. We did not know what was going on. So in the moment, we were just like, we know we're safe here. Let's protect ourselves first, and then go from there.
And can you talk to me about the security situation at that Union building? Because typically, of course, you have police on campus. Most campuses have police officers, but that building, do you typically see security officers around the place roaming?
There are police around a good bit of the time. It's not always, but it's a good bit of the time that we'll see them just going in and out of the Union. And then we, the headquarters for the police is minutes away. It's in a hub of campus, so they're, if they're not in the building, they were, close enough to the building, and it was within, a few minutes, I believe, that they were on scene, and I'm just so grateful to them.
Yeah. And Ryan, I know you posted on X right after this happened. What did you say there? And what, I suppose, what made you feel the need to, express yourself about what you were going through? We're looking at that post right now.
It was just, I'm so grateful to be safe, and just to let people, my friends and family, know that I am safe and I'm okay. And, it was just, a moment of like, I can't thank FSU Police and Tallahassee Police enough. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.
I know this was a very, very difficult situation for you. We really appreciate it. Right now, Lindsay Reiser's next. Stay with us here on CBS News.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lindsay Reiser. We are following breaking news from Tallahassee, Florida, where police are on the scene of a shooting at Florida State University that left multiple people injured. Right now, we know from Tallahassee Memorial Hospital that there are 6 patients, 5 serious and 1 critical. We are waiting for information on their ages and their genders. We know that an alert was sent out by the school saying the shooting happened at the student union around noon today, Eastern time. We know students are sheltering in place. All classes and activities for the rest of the day are canceled. The White House says the president has been briefed and is monitoring the situation. We have team coverage on this for you. We have CBS News senior coordinating producer for the Crime and Public Safety Unit, Anna Schechter, alongside CBS News correspondent Chanel Call, both following this for us. Let's go ahead and go first to you, Anna, with the latest that we know.
Well, you just cited those numbers. The latest confirmed information that we have from the local hospital, 6 patients, 5 in serious condition, 1 in critical condition. We've also learned that a suspect, was injured and is in custody at this time. We've seen footage of students being cleared out of buildings, but that is a large area to clear, so that process is ongoing. There are multiple local, state, and federal agents on the scene. The process of clearing that continues. The investigation has already begun into the suspect. Going to be looking at motive. We are in very early stages. This is all fluid. We are waiting to see if those numbers I cited earlier climb. But at this time, we've got 6 patients in the hospital.
Can you repeat the part about the suspect? I think that's important.
Sure. The suspect that we know of was injured and is in custody. And investigators now are going to develop a timeline looking at the minutes, hours, days, and weeks leading up to the shooting. So they're looking at motive, they're looking at how the individual obtained the weapon, and then, of course, exactly how this individual carried out the shooting. There are already eyewitness testimony coming in about hearing shots, hearing multiple shots around noontime at the student union at Florida State University. So obviously, police are going to want to get in touch with all those people who are posting, talking to local news organizations about what they saw and what they heard. This is all part of an investigation, and police do not want to corrupt that investigative process that will be part of a prosecutor's case that they will build against that suspect.
And that shelter-in-place order is still in place, right? Can you tell us what happens during a shelter-in-place order at a major university like this?
Absolutely. The order was to stay in your room, barricade the door, lock the windows, do not move from the place that you are in at this time. What happens in a university like this, you have multiple dorm rooms, classrooms, and what police will do is they will go room by room and clear each room. What does clear mean? They have to determine whether there is no other threat. That's part of the clearing process. They will have students, faculty, and staff raise their arms, sometimes even lift their shirts to make sure that nobody else has a weapon. And with their hands up, they will exit the room. And then if they're on a higher floor, they will descend the stairs, and there will be multiple law enforcement officials at every place to kind of guide a line of people slowly walking out. Very important for students, faculty, and staff not to run to create a situation of chaos, because that could lead to another tragedy. So far, what I have seen from footage there, students and staff are following those directives.
I know that for anybody who might just be joining us, we are following breaking news of an active shooter situation at Florida State University in Tallahassee. I know that you are about to go continue to research and see what else you can find and confirm. Can you just please, again, just go through some of your top lines?
Sure. The top line is the suspect was injured by law enforcement, is in custody at this time, likely being questioned already by investigators. There are 6 patients who were injured being treated at a local hospital. 5 are in serious condition. 1 is in critical condition. We will likely continue to hear more in the next hour or 2 about those victims. At this time, that is the information that we have confirmed.
Okay, Anna Schechter, thank you so much, senior coordinating producer for our Crime and Public Safety Unit. We appreciate that. Let us know what developments you have. I want to go now to Department of Justice correspondent Scott McFarland, who is also following this from our Washington bureau. Scott, what is the latest that you're hearing from the multiple agencies that are involved?
Yeah, we're getting the type of details with which we've become all too familiar in these shooting responses. The Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau is there. The FBI's resident agent in Tallahassee, the field office in Jacksonville. There's local law enforcement. There's state police there. There's this multi-layered law enforcement response. But some of this has such ominous echoes to things we report in far too frequently. The emergency student reunion facility is the Donald Tucker Civic Center. That's where students are urged to go if they can't get to where they're living, or if they can't get to an off-campus site. The Donald Tucker Civic Center is the site of the spring commencement in a few weeks for Florida State. We also know that an alert went out to students to shelter in place, get behind locked doors if you can. We hear that all too frequently as well. That alert went out at about 12:01 p.m. Eastern Time. According to our CBS News reporting, Lindsay, the Tallahassee Police Department had scheduled for 12 p.m. today an emergency drill about which they notified the campus and broader community. An emergency drill that would have, quoting here, loud bangs, explosions, and sirens, which could potentially have caused some people to conflate the drill they were notified about with the reality of the response to this mass shooting. Then you heard what President Trump said while addressing the press in the Oval Office. He said it's a shame horrible things like this take place, and that he'll speak more about it at a later time or later date. The FBI director, the U.S. Attorney General have all been notified and briefed. So is the Secretary of Education and directors of other relevant agencies.
Scott, I know that we at this point don't have any connection between this announced training exercise and the shooting. There's no link that we know of at this point, but it certainly does, and I'm sure you have the journalistic mind where questions are constantly pinging in your brain, that yes, on one hand, of course, they have to announce things like this because you don't want to spook the public, you don't want to cause panic if they're hearing or seeing things, but on the other hand, you have somebody who could have nefarious motivations who could be seeing a public alert like this.
Yeah, it's a best practice to notify when you're going to do a drill. Goodness, we get so many of them here in Washington, D.C. with the Capitol and the White House complex and several dozen law enforcement agencies. They alert you if there's going to be aircraft flying overhead or sirens so that you don't misinterpret it for a real emergency. There seems to be a rather troubling coincidence today where the alert went out for a 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. drill in which there'd be loud bangs and sirens and noise from a law enforcement training exercise within a few miles of where the actual response happened. And we do know that emergency message was sent to the campus community. In fact, it's actually now posted on the Tallahassee Police Department Facebook page. This was available to anybody and could have caused some initial confusion, but just judging by the number of law enforcement agencies that say they have a foothold there on the campus, from state, locals, and feds, there's obviously a very vibrant law enforcement presence on the campus now.
Scott, earlier in our CBS News special report, you essentially said that lunchtime would be rush hour for the student union. Anyone who's stepped foot on a university campus can certainly agree with that statement. But can you elaborate again on this student union in proximity to the rest of the university and what you know about the layout of this campus?
The student union is going to be where you want it to be, right in the center of campus, where everybody can congregate. Student unions have what you need at the lunch hour. Lunch. But also, this is one of those days, right, on a college campus. It's a Thursday afternoon in the brilliant sun in Florida. You're going to have any number of students outside, not in their dorms, out and about. You're going to have visiting students there for tours, and we've heard reports of tour groups or people on tours being nearby, as you'd expect, late in the semester on a Thursday. And this all comes, back of the napkin math, about 15 days until the spring commencement. We're near the end of the semester when everybody is, on campus and active.
So, Scott, what are you going to be tracking in the next few minutes and hours? What questions are you going to be asking?
Well, when you see one of these shooting incidents on a campus, you know they're going to be doing those building-to-building searches if they're not well underway already, doing room-by-room searches to make sure there aren't victims that haven't been found yet, make sure there aren't people in need, but also you never want to preclude the possibility there are other threats and dangers on a campus. We've seen this before, where after a shooter is taken into custody, they're making sure there aren't other shooters, multiple shooters, or devices placed on campuses or placed in areas to make sure all hazards are removed. One of the reasons why, as a best practice, you have that type of reunion center, an area you know is secure. The Civic Center, likely closed as the day began, only open for special events, is now open for students within steps of the campus.
Scott, in the special report, you had also mentioned previous tragic shootings that the state of Florida has bear witness to. Parkland, the shooting at the Pulse nightclub. And you had also mentioned some legislation that's being taken up at the state capitol there. Can you elaborate on that?
It's just another one of those coincidences, but one that's particularly relevant at this moment. in Tallahassee is also the state capitol. In April, the legislature is actually meeting and going through bills. And our CBS News reporting was that they, in the past few days, passed through the House, the state House in Florida, legislation to pull back some of the gun control laws they passed after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Parkland in 2018, including legislation that allowed for what they call red flag laws, to alert if somebody who shouldn't have a gun does have one, to have a court get involved. Also, a law that would make it unlawful for most people under 21 to buy a firearm. They have been working to retract those laws amid change in politics in Tallahassee and in Florida, and as those memories fade of Parkland. We note that's happening this week. We note it's happening in the same city at this moment in time.
Scott, you had mentioned I believe you said Donald Tucker. Let me pull this up.
Civic Center.
The Donald Tucker Civic Center as the student reunification point. How does that work when there's a current shelter-in-place order?
Yeah, I think the reunification points are typically for students who may not be able to get access to where they initially were, or those looking for a safe place to congregate. Those often work in synchronization with lockdown orders. Can't speak to the volume of people going there, but the public announcement was noteworthy. And so, too, are all those alerts, aren't they? You hear about these alerts that go out to people's phones in a way that we never had when we were college age. You can get things, instantaneously. Those types of alerts are so imperative, and it's one of the reasons why you also want to notify people if you're going to do an emergency drill so they don't conflate reality with the drills. This type of communication is a best practice, which sadly, Lindsay, is something you perfect in a nation where there are so frequently mass shootings.
All right, Scott McFarland, we know you're going to continue to dig. Let us know when you get new information. President Trump was briefed, as I mentioned, on the FSU shooting. He addressed the shooting in the Oval Office a short time ago. Let's listen.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I've been briefed on the Florida State University, Tallahassee active shooting. I guess it's an active shooter. Fully briefed as to where we are right now. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing. Horrible that things like this take place. And we'll have more to say about it later.
CBS News correspondent Chanel Call also following this story for us. For anybody who might just be tuning in, Chanel, what do we know?
So let's talk first about the shooter. The alleged shooter we now know is in police custody. We also know that this person was injured during the incident and they are now in a hospital. But that doesn't mean the situation is over and under control by any means. I mean, the school is still in a lockdown this hour. And let's talk about the injuries, because we know there were some injuries during the incident that unfolded in the last 2 hours or so. We know this started around noon. Sources now confirm to us that 6 people, Lindsay, were injured. 5 of them, I should say, are in serious condition. 1 is in critical condition. And that number, 6, it also includes the shooter. As for what's happening here on campus, I want to talk about where this all took place. We've been talking about the Student Union building, which is where this all began. And as you can imagine, this is a vibrant part of campus, a lot of activity, especially at the noon lunch hour. It's sort of in the heart of campus. And even though we know now the shooter is apprehended, campus is still very much under lockdown. We know there are
a suspected shooter in custody. We don't know if there's anybody outstanding that police are still looking for.
We do not know if there are multiple people involved in this. We just know at this point, officials are saying that 1 shooter, they believe to be the shooter, is in custody. And you can see through our video there on the scene that there is a massive response. I mean, we're talking about a really huge campus, Lindsay. This is 500 acres. So when you look at the response here, it makes sense. I mean, we're looking at campus police, state police, FBI, and as you heard Scott say, ATF also now heading to the scene. I want to read you the last message that I saw from FSU. They just sent this out saying, continue to shelter in place. Law enforcement is actively clearing rooms on the main campus. Law enforcement officers will use the safe word Seminole to confirm it is safe to open the door. Continue to shelter in place until law enforcement contacts you. And this is something we've been talking to Anna about as well. When you see those images of some of the students walking out in those lines with their arms in the air, they're being filed out in a in a really careful fashion. We don't want to, really have any more chaos ensue on campus. And so that's what we were looking at earlier, those students being escorted out as law enforcement now clears some of the rooms on campus. As you can imagine, activity now is on hold. So we know all classes, all activities that were planned on campus today, those have been canceled. And so at this point,
I've pulled up the academic calendar for FSU also because Scott was talking about we're days away from the end of classes.
Right.
They had spring break around this time last month, March 10th through the 14th. The last day of classes today is April 17th, April 25th. So we really are just days away from the end of the semester.
And I mean, think about when you were in school. This is usually a time where there's a lot of jubilation, a lot of excitement towards the end of the semester.
Finals. I don't know what the final schedule is.
Maybe some stress about
final
that too.
exam week is April 28th through May 2nd.
But
so
people
maybe
are excited to look ahead to the end of the semester. And some of the students that we've been hearing speaking to CBS News Miami have talked about that level of fear and chaos of being inside. And we saw this video actually was taken by a student who was inside one of the campus buildings. And, you look out front and you see that line of police vehicles. This is obviously a really scary moment.
And one student spoke to CBS News.
Yeah,
what did
I'll
they say?
read you just what they said. This is from Blake Leonard telling CBS News Miami. Again, we've been hearing from so many students like this. 400 feet from the student union, that, of course, the building where all this took place, when he heard the gunfire and started running. So imagine the fear there. And Blake Leonard telling CBS News Miami, I heard about 12 shots go off. In my head, I thought it was construction at first until I looked behind me and saw people running from the union towards my direction. And then I heard another 12 or 15 shots go off. So I started running away from there, too, he said. And I think this really encapsulates all of the fear and the chaos that happened on campus earlier today. And I think that there are still folks who are there unsure of what they should do next. And so, again, I want to mention that FSU is telling those students, please do stay and shelter in place until we come to your door. We will use the safe word Seminole, and that's how you'll know it's safe to open your door. At this point, again, Lindsay, officials are saying they do have one person in custody. That one person was injured during some kind of correspondence with police on scene. They were taken to a hospital, and 6 people in total were injured, including the shooter.
You're going to keep tracking everything for us, so stay put if you can, if you're able to. I want to bring in former FBI Special Agent Doug Coons on this for us. Doug, I'm sure you've been listening. This is obviously a tragic day for Florida, for the nation. What are your initial thoughts?
I guess here we go again. It's just unfortunate, like another speaker before me said, that this happens far too often. On the other hand, law enforcement's getting very good at dealing with this. It looks to me like it's being handled very effectively, very efficiently. We've got a person in custody. They're in the process of clearing buildings and getting people out of their shelter in places and back home. And it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds, because now the big question I think everybody is wondering is why? What's the motivation? What's the ideology? And that's what investigators will be looking at in the next hours, days, weeks.
And can you go through what shelter-in-place protocol is at a major university like this and the daunting task of, I believe Chanel said this is a 500-acre campus, the daunting task of clearing room to room, building to building?
I'm sure that's going to vary from campus to campus. You know, we're in Indiana, I'm not there, but I would imagine it's going to be the immediate building. You know, the student unions are typically very large. There's going to be a lot of rooms in there that need to be cleared. So you'll start with kind of the center of all the activity and move outward, clearing those rooms, giving the safe word, letting them come out, making sure that there's nobody else involved, that there's no other potential active shooters that are lurking, and they're erring on the side of caution. You know, there could be explosive devices somewhere. There's just a lot of unknowns, and they're trying to take all that into account when they go through these procedures. And like I say, all these campuses now have procedures. They train on them, not just the faculty, staff, and law enforcement, but the students as well. So hopefully they've got a good idea of what to do when this happens.
And Doug, our own Scott McFarland had pointed out that a police memo was circulated earlier today saying the Tallahassee Police Department was staging a training exercise with, quote, loud bangs, crashes, and sirens simultaneous to the shooting. the training about a mile away, scheduled from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. We know that there were reports of the shooting at the Student Union at 12 p.m. Eastern. I'm just wondering your thoughts on that, and whether anything comes to mind. Obviously, I had spoken with Scott about the necessity, standard operating procedure to let the public know about training exercises like that so as not to instill panic. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's, I guess, just a big coincidence. On the other hand, you put out a notice that you're going to be doing this kind of training, and then people start hearing shots. Are they wondering, is this the training or is this the real thing? Maybe a little bit of confusion there. I'm not sure, but it's definitely a point to consider.
Certainly. Now, when we know, Doug, that there are multiple agencies, we have not only Tallahassee Police, University Police, we have FBI, ATF that may play a role as well. How do all of these different agencies work together when it comes to, I suppose, first the initial, which is right now just securing the scene, and then the subsequent investigation?
Typically, and I've been retired for some time now, but typically there's a command post that's set up and they've trained on this, and everybody has a specific role and function that they're going to execute during these. So they'll get the command post set up. Everybody will be assigned. So you've got some people that are interviewing witnesses. You've got people that are processing the crime scene. You have people that are gathering security videos and videos from students and staff that might have captured some of this. At the office level, then you've got all the analysts and the people that are working on figuring out who this person is, finding their social media, finding out where they live, interviewing the neighbors, interviewing coworkers, friends, anybody that knows him. They're really going to be trying to unravel this person's life to figure out who he was, who he is, and what motivated him to do something like this. Is it a mental health issue? Is it some sort of political? Is it other ideological? We just don't know that right now, and that's what the investigators are working on.
Okay, Doug, we appreciate your time, but stay with us if you can. Understand if you do have to step away, but if you are able to stand by, we would appreciate that. I know that CBS News Miami did speak with a student who had to evacuate. Let's go ahead and listen.
There was a shooting on your campus.
I mean, when I saw everyone flooding up the stairs, I kind of thought that the shooter was in the library. I mean, nobody told me where it was. They said Landis or whatever, and I was just in utter disbelief. I was you never think that it's gonna be you and your campus, but you really never know. So it felt surreal, but yeah.
How are you doing now?
I'm doing okay. I mean, there's other people who are doing probably a lot worse than me, so I'm just mourning for those people because I feel really bad. But other than that, just waiting to get my stuff back. My car is in one of the garages that they locked down. So.
All right, we want to go now to CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, how is the administration responding?
Lindsay, it's good to be with you. We're hearing from the White House that the president has been fully briefed on this situation. He was actually in the Oval Office a short while ago having a meeting with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. When he was asked about the shooting, he said he's been fully briefed as to where we are right now. He called it a shame and a horrible thing that things like this take place. And he said they will have more to say about it later. I do want to note Trump said this a little over a half hour ago. And obviously, this is a very dynamic situation we are seeing play out at Florida State University right now as we're learning not only more about the shooter, but about the victims as well, pardon me. But the White House says they're monitoring this situation very, very closely and should have more to share later when we know more.
Okay, and Olivia, when we do have things like this, how does it typically work in terms of the frequency that we will typically hear from the White House and updates?
Well, it really does depend. I mean, the situation right now in Florida looks very fluid as we're learning more about what exactly took place, and these lockdowns are still in place. I was reminded yesterday that it was the 18th anniversary of the shooting at Virginia Tech, which, if you'll remember, 32 students lost their lives. And I do remember that very well as someone who grew up in Virginia, and I remember watching the president that night deliver statements about that as well. So it could take a little bit of time before we hear from this White House. I'm sure they want to be very sure of everything that has gone on, especially who the victims are, the victim count, if there is one, but also what we're learning about the shooter, perhaps any political ideologies that he may have had. Again, this is all speculation. We do not know anything about the shooter right now. But it could potentially be a few hours before we hear more from the president. Of course, there are events he's planning today. He is meeting with the Italian Prime Minister. They were expected to sign some executive orders later on today, but it's a very fluid situation, not only throughout this bilateral meeting, but perhaps what could happen at the White House for the rest of the day. Of course, we have seen presidents of all kinds respond to mass shootings throughout all of their presidencies. If you remember, during the Sandy Hook shooting, President Obama delivered an address to the nation about that, where he got very emotional on camera about that. It's unfortunately something that every president has had to deal with and had to address. So we'll be watching to see what this White House says specifically about this as we're learning more, and there's a lot of information coming in.
Okay, Olivia Rinaldi, thank you. Want to go back to Chanel Call, who has been collecting information feverishly next to me. What's the latest that we know?
Well, we're hearing more and more reports now, Lindsay, of the panic and the chaos and confusion when this news broke at around noon. And now we've seen this story progress. We know the shooter is in police custody and he was injured, or they are injured, I should say, and in a hospital. But at this point, the situation is not fully under control. We know the lockdown is still very much in place on campus at Florida State University this hour. And some of the students were actually in class when that alert went out at about noon. And Lindsay, they really describe a terrifying scene. I want to read you what one student, Ava Arando, said to CBS News Miami. My teacher immediately started barricading the door, and then another student said she'd rather go home. So we all just kind of ran to our cars. So I think when you hear some of these stories, you really understand just how chaotic and scary those moments are. You know,
well, there's also so much information that you take in and you imagine what would happen if, God forbid, you were in such a situation. You know, we have the shelter-in-place order, but then we have heard drilled into our heads for many years now, run, hide, fight. And so it is when we hear from people who are living this in that exact moment and your fight or flight kicks in, it really is harrowing because you yourself, it's so emotional. You can imagine, what would I do in that situation?
And I think a lot of the students, too, have grown up doing these kinds of drills. Yeah. One, as Scott mentioned, was actually scheduled to happen this afternoon. But again, so many people that are in that situation find themselves saying, I never thought this would happen to me. And when you are in that situation, it can be really difficult to parse through exactly what to do, which is what Ava was describing, that she just wanted to run to her car. And that's what she did in that moment to keep herself safe. As for what to do if you are still on campus, there is some guidance coming from FSU. They are saying right now law enforcement is actively still clearing rooms on the main campus. They will use a safe word Seminole to confirm it is safe to open the door. They are asking people this hour to continue to shelter in place until law enforcement says otherwise. But we're seeing images like this and videos like this, really start to populate on X this hour, Lindsay, where you see the vantage point from students who were on campus. We know that this happened in the Students' Union Center, which anyone who spent any time on campus will know it's sort of the heart of the university. It is where all of the activity is. It's sort of the hub of campus, especially during that busy lunch hour. So, again, some really tense moments. I also want to share that the Florida Seminoles is sending a message out on X just moments ago. They're saying all Florida State athletics home events through Sunday, April 20th have been canceled. Further updates on events scheduled for next week will be communicated when available. So again, we are seeing the response to this situation that is still very active and still unfolding on Florida State University campus this hour. As for classes, university classes and activities have all been canceled for today. And now we're just learning state athletics are also canceling all athletic events until this Sunday.
Yeah, and it looks like on their athletics website, I'm seeing, looks like tennis and volleyball games that will be affected by this, but certainly athletics, at least through Sunday, canceled. Chanel, thank you so much. For anybody who might just be joining us, let's go ahead and tell you the latest that we know on this situation. We're following breaking news. Florida State University reports of an active shooter. This is in Tallahassee, and the reports came in around noon Eastern today of an active shooter situation at the Student Union. We know that police have responded. They have put in a shelter-in-place order. We also know from the hospital, Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, confirming that they have taken in 6 patients, 5 serious, 1 critical. We are working on getting information about their ages and genders. This is what we know so far. And at least one of the people believed to be involved in this from a suspect point of view is in custody, apparently injured in the hospital as well. So I want to go ahead and bring in right now CBS News Department of Justice correspondent Scott McFarland, who can certainly go over some of the latest top lines that I had just mentioned and anything else that's coming into our newsroom.
Yeah, the alert just came out from the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare System. That's the level 2 trauma center closest to campus, that they are now, quote, fully mobilized and accepting victims of what they call the incident at Florida State University's campus today. The most recent reporting we have from law enforcement on the scene is that there are at least 6 victims, at least 5 of them have serious injuries. The staging area the campus is set up is at the Donald Tucker Civic Center nearby, as some students were still in that shelter-in-place order, but others on this vibrant Thursday afternoon were out on campus and may now be gathering at the Civic Center. A few notes from federal law enforcement. The FBI, as one would expect, is on site. They actually have a resident agent who's based in Tallahassee, a resident agent office with personnel in Tallahassee, a short drive away from this campus. We know the FBI Jacksonville is the largest field office the FBI has there, headed to Tallahassee as well. The FBI director, the Homeland Security director, Secretary of Education, the U.S. Attorney General have all put out statements that they've been briefed on this. And the president spoke in the Oval Office a short while ago, was asked about the shooting, and said it's a shame that horrible things like this take place. And he pledged to get back with more to say at a later time or a later date. I'll note this, as I've had a number of good contacts reach out to me to reaffirm something. There are a number of Marjory Stoneman Douglas Parkland students who survived that mass shooting in 2018 who are current students at Florida State University. I tracked at least one of them. Was a scholarship winner who was friends with one of the students, one of the children killed at Parkland, who today is on that campus dealing with this. The echoes of these shootings become such a trauma for our children. The fear of these shootings becomes such a trauma for our children. You have some number of teenagers or college students today who are experiencing this a second time.
Almost unfathomable. But also, Scott, when I think about what happened at Marjory Stoneman Douglas, I think that really also, that tragedy sort of gave birth to a new movement. Really the likes that we hadn't seen. Obviously, we have seen calls for gun control and reform after almost every shooting, mass shooting at a school or a movie theater or what have you. But really, Parkland does stand out when it comes to people who have been on the forefront of that fight.
To that point, Lindsay, 2 things come to mind. First of all, they've torn down that building just a few months ago at the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, but they left it as it was from February 14th, 2018 for years, with, the debris, the belongings, the blood of the victims, so that they could walk lawmakers through that building, state and federal. The Vice President of the United States in that era, Kamala Harris, was brought through that building instructively to show what the casualties are inside a school, on a campus when there's a school shooting. They took it down and they're replacing it with a memorial. There's a new building there. But also, Lindsay, you're just a few minutes away from the state capitol in Tallahassee, from this scene of this shooting today, and they are actively, kinetically looking at gun control or gun rights legislation. None of this happens in a vacuum, and all of this, though, is happening too frequently.
All right, let's go now to Florida State University student Ben Veytsman. He was in the teacher's lounge when this took place. Ben, I'm so sorry we're talking to you under these circumstances. How are you doing?
I'm okay. It's the people out there that are not okay. Like, I was able to get back to my apartment safely. I'd say, like, I'm literally one of the most privileged people when it comes to this situation. I was walking out of Thagard. I had an appointment there, and then I'm just walking back to my apartment. I'm next to Stroger, and I see these, like, 2 guys running. I'm just like, I think it's an altercation just between them 2. And then the guy in front is like, yo, there's a school shooter. Everyone get inside. And that's, like, when me and the people around me start to realize that this is serious. So we all, like, bust into Stroger. You have to, like, swipe your ID to get in past these, like, gates. But I just, like, push past them. I've never been in like a school shooting situation before. I thought, where's the safest place where you go? I go to the elevator and I try to go as high as possible. There's 5 floors, but it only brings me to the 3rd floor. I get out the elevator and like the staff lounge door is open for a second. I was like, I feel like that would be the safest place to go. And I step in, like, you can't be here. I'm like, there's literally a shooting right now. Let me take cover. And then it's just me and 3 other people, they're faculty, for about like an hour or so. And we're just like getting information piece by piece. We don't know how serious the situation is. And then we started to like hear the alarms and all the sirens, and we're able to like, we get a really good view of Landis Green, and like that's where a lot of stuff happening. We saw this like girl get carried by police, and like just like kids with like hands on their heads, like getting escorted into the library, and it's so serious. And from there, the fire department eventually came in and said like, okay, we're going to escort you to Reynolds, which is just like some other building on campus. And from there, I was able to walk home safely. But I know right now there's kids who are still in classrooms. There's kids who like got injured or are being sent to the hospital. Like the fact that I'm being interviewed right now is crazy because, I mean, I posted on social media and that's how you guys contacted me, but there's kids with like real first eyewitness accounts that I wasn't able to have. Like the closest I was able to like receiving any account of this situation was as soon as that guy said, oh, there's a shooting, when I was right by Stroger Library, I heard a gunshot in that very moment, and that's when I knew to run.
How close in proximity is the lounge that you took shelter in from the student union?
It's like a 2-minute walk. Like the library and the union are very close together. So I knew that I was in a very dangerous place, but like the staff lounge doors are really made of glass. Like anyone could break into that moment, but just like you have to swipe a card to get into the staff lounge, but still it's made of glass. Like if a shooter wanted to get in, they would, but I don't know. I just felt really safe there. And I thank the faculty that let me stay with them as the only student in there.
As your instinct in that moment. You had mentioned you saw a girl being carried by police. Did you notice any visible injuries?
I really couldn't see that clearly. I mean, I was like on the 3rd floor in Stroger. This was happening on ground level. And I just see like, they're all like yelling like, help her now, or like, get this medic. And like, it was just like a crazy hectic moment. I was just like seeing it with my own eyes. And this whole situation, I feel like I'm not a very sensitive person, but like when I got back home, I like got sent videos of like in group chats with my friends of like dead bodies just like near the student union, which I go to every single day. And like that's where it really like hit me.
We do have to be careful, Ben. We haven't confirmed any fatalities, but I do appreciate you giving us a little bit more information that you've seen videos in your group chat. No, it's okay. I mean, we're working on confirming that information, and certainly you giving us information on what you're seeing on your phone is helpful as we do that work to do that journalistically. You had mentioned that police had gone into the teachers' lounge where you were seeking shelter with, I believe you said, 3 other faculty members. Was it your understanding that police were going building by building to clear and bring people to safety, and that's what they had done when they reached you?
Yeah. So as soon as like we saw like people try to enter the staff lounge, the glass isn't that clear, but we were able to tell that like those are people helping us. And earlier when we just like were looking out the windows to see what was happening, we saw just like a bunch of like police enforcement and stuff like that with big guns just like standing outside Stroger Library. Like we knew Stroger Library was safe. So like when people approached us, we knew that's like they're going to evacuate us.
I know that you had, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say like another moment, I don't know if I mentioned, but like one of the faculty members was crying, just being like, I'm so scared, I want to go home. And we all hugged. It was a really sweet moment, just showing you how severe the situation is.
Yeah, certainly the fear. It really describes the fear. I mean, was there anything that you guys were talking about in that lounge to comfort one another?
I mean, just the uncertainty of it all.
Yeah.
Like, I just hear from a guy saying school shooting. You don't have to tell me twice. I'm running in the building right then and there. But just like as the hours have been going by, it's like you hear more and more stuff. And it's just like sickening. Like a school shooting, I personally, high school, grew up in a very like privileged neighborhood, like Cresskill High School. Like you would never think a school shooting would ever happen there. But like you hear about it all around the country. And I know like FSU is like a really big college and so many students, like anything could happen, but it's like a school shooting is like that thing that you hear about, but you really don't absorb the situation once it finally happens to you. And I see that's what a lot of people are probably going through today.
Ben, do you guys ever have active shooter drills where university police or administration talk to students and faculty about what to do in the event of such a tragedy?
I don't think so. I actually know that there was a shooting at Stroger in like maybe 2014, like around that ballpark. I'm not 100% sure. I know that there's been a shooting here before, but active shooter drills, I can't recall ever being in one of those. Like high school, we've always had like code yellow, just like lockdown drills where it's like you hide in like a corner for 5 minutes, but nothing to actually prepare you for what to do when there's like, especially when you're at college campus, it's different. Like my high school is just like a building. There's no other buildings to go to, but it's like when you're outside and you hear there's a shooter, it's like, should you go inside? Should you go home? Like, who knows?
Ben, I know that you said you're not a super emotional person, but clearly this is rattling for anybody. I mean, what are you thinking and feeling in this moment?
Right now, I'm just thinking like, I'm on the news right now. There should be many other people on the news talking about like what they saw and like serious stuff, but I'm a person who posts on social media a lot. That's how you guys reached out to me. And
I also wouldn't downplay your experience. What you went through is still traumatic.
Yeah, no, I'd say definitely traumatic, but I know there's definitely going to be other people who are going to be taking months to get over this. Like, as I was running the library, I see this girl like hyperventilating, and I'm just like, it must be so scary for her because she's clearly showing it.
Is there anything else you think we should know, Ben?
I just hope that everyone is safe, and I'm so sorry for those who are lost. Like, there's literally families right now who like sent their kids to college, and this is what's happening with their money that they paid for this kid, or even students are paying out of pocket. Like, just so many scenarios where people lost a loved one today, and I'm just on the news interviewing. It's like, that could have been me. That could have been anyone. I want everyone to be so fortunate that they're safe right now if they're safe.
And Veytsman, I'm so sorry again that we're talking under these circumstances, but I appreciate you giving us your time. I appreciate you giving us such open and honest answers, and we hope that you continue to stay safe.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, let's bring in CBS News national security contributor and former FBI Executive Assistant Director for Intelligence, Josh School. He's now the president of the National Security Service. I believe it's BowWave LLC. You can correct me, but what are your thoughts after not only hearing our talk with Ben, but the latest on what we know from this active shooter situation at FSU?
Well, first of all, your heart has to go out to the victims and their families, and the victims, as you reported earlier, we know there's 6 right now. We've heard of other kids being trampled in the chaos. So your heart really goes out to them and making sure that everybody hopefully is okay. Secondarily, I think it was a tremendous response by law enforcement, federal, state, local, and you're seeing really the resources of law enforcement come together. Unfortunately, trained too often in these scenarios, and we really, as a country, need to start thinking about how we're going to remedy these situations so they don't continue to happen.
Certainly. We had talked to Ben, and he wasn't really aware of any official protocol or training for students at the university in an active shooter situation. I mean, is that pretty typical where the university maybe just tries to put out helpful literature that could maybe offer some help in the dire case of something like this happening, God forbid? Or do some universities, to your knowledge, have more laid out plans, training drills, et cetera?
I'm quite confident Florida State University and their police department have a protocol associated with an active shooter plan.
For students, though, not for the department, for students that they communicate.
Yeah, they have protocols for the students. There's resources available for them to absorb. As far as training drills with the entire student body, I think that's probably unwieldy. Okay. I think there are resources and communications that go to students and what they should do if this were to happen, what to do, what not to do, and then this would be the actions by law enforcement in those scenarios to conduct. And I undoubtedly they're doing other exercises, but not always with the student body. That it would be nearly impossible to control. But I'm confident that those training protocols are in place.
Any final thoughts?
Well, I mean, aside from the horrific incident and the initial reporting of, 6 injured, law enforcement and what they're doing right now is they are working to make sure that there are no other victims. There's nobody waiting to be rescued, that there's no support for this gunman. And then they're going to start to do their standard investigation. They're going to be collecting evidence, conducting interviews of friends, family, co-workers, and then looking at his digital footprint and really getting to the cause of what caused this shooting, and seeing if there is anything that they could have done to prevent it.
All right, Josh School, thank you very much for your time and expertise. We are going to continue to monitor this breaking news situation, active shooter situation at FSU. At least a shooting suspect believed to be in custody, injured in the hospital. We know that 6 patients are in the hospital, 5 serious, 1 critical. We're working on getting more information. We'll have any more updates and more news on the other end of this break. You're watching CBS News 24/7.